Welcome into the Shop Management Show presented by AutoLeap. I'm your host, Will. This podcast will explore the experiences, challenges, and lessons learned of auto repair shop owners. We'll cover every topic imaginable from EVs to ADAS, right to repair, the technician shortage, and so much more. AutoLeap is an all-in-one cloud-based shop management software that allows shop owners to better run their business, increase efficiency, and grow revenue. You can find a link to schedule a free demo with AutoLeap in the show notes of this episode. Please like, share, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. How can shop owners, as part of this system, ensure that they're not over allocating or under allocating into specific buckets that you just were talking through?
Well, so the first thing they're going to have to do is they're going to have to look at their income statement, and hopefully everybody out there has an income statement. If you don't, make sure you get with somebody that can prepare you a proper PRL or income statement. They're both the same thing, just using different verbiage. And I would say is you want somebody that can prepare that within 2 weeks at the most. Like if you just ended your August books, by September 15th, somebody should be able to hand you your income statement for August and then the rest of the year together. A lot of times I see shop owners where they don't even do any of their taxes until the end of the year, and they just take a big old shoebox and throw it at the accountant, and they don't have a clue. I want you to be able, I would love for you to be able to see your income statement within a day, if at all possible. If you have somebody on site, like a bookkeeper or somebody, then they should be spending part of their time doing that and preparing that. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to pull this income statement / PRL out, and you're going to look at it. Hopefully it's sliced and diced into a great way. If somebody's out there and listening and they want a copy of our chart of accounts that we recommend, maybe we can put a link or something into the podcast, or if they want to email me, Chris at autofixsos.com, they can, and I can send that out. But it's going to have like your income, your cost of goods sold, and you're going to slice and dice that up. And what you're going to do is you're going to figure out what you're currently spending in those categories. Now we're going to be close, but here's the other thing. Our parts category, most of the time when people start with me, their parts cost is about 23% or higher. And we want that to be 23% down to 20% as a cost of total sales. So what we need to do is look at our parts cost and then figure out what it is, and then figure that, allocate that. But what happens is if you have cores that aren't returned, if you're not using the parts matrix, if you have a warranty issue, that's going to mess that figure up just a little bit. So you have to be a little bit nimble. The first couple of months, you may have to move something from one and reallocate it to another, but you're basically just going to look at your income statement, break it down into those categories, and then be like, okay, based on the last 6 months, the last year, these are my percentages, and this is where I need to start. And then after that, you're just slowly making changes over time. Like usually what we do is we don't make any changes at all in that first quarter. We run through the quarter and see what we've got and the accounts that we've got extra. And then the great thing about it is if you end that first quarter and you've got $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 sitting there extra, then all that can go to the profit account. And then you just switch your allocations out and make your allocations more dialed in, and then you run it for another quarter and go from there.
Yeah, it's great to hear the upside of how the system can work. Back to the income statement. How often would you recommend that an auto repair shop owner is looking through their income statement? And then what should they prioritize on it in terms of what they're looking at?
Well, I mean, they should be looking at it, at least monthly, if not more. And so really the point of sale system or the SMS system does a great job of kind of getting you close in the day to day. But if you really want to look at, fine point, where's the money going? What are my expenses? How are the margins working out? The only place you have to get that is from the income statement or the PRL. So if you're not reviewing it every month, let's say you don't have one, or let's say your accountant or bookkeeper's behind, you can't look at it for 3 or 4 months. Cash is getting tight. You don't know what's going on. Finally, you get to see one, say in April for January, February, and March, and your parts margin's out of whack for some reason by 10 or 15%. Now you have to go on a fact-finding mission to figure out, okay, Did we not get cores in? Is somebody stealing from the company? What's going on? And so you're 3 months late to the party, even 4 months late to the party. And then by the time you're trying to adjust it, the whole situation may have changed. So if you're looking at it weekly, bi-weekly, once a month, then you can see the changes that need to be made and make them better in real time.
I wanted to kind of zoom back out and focus on an effective cash flow strategy and the upside that that presents for a shop and able to achieve their goals. What does the upside of that kind of look like when this system is in place, it's running well, and everything is being allocated as intended, and you feel very streamlined and professional with this process?
Well, really, the sky's the limit at that point. When you're in it and you're in control of your cash, again, you have access to cash, number one. Number two, your checks are getting cash, so the family's happy and your family budget is good. Um, you can do any type of expansion project you want to within reason. You show a track record. That's the other thing, is a lot of shop owners, they get their income statement at the end of the year and the accountant says, "Oh, you made $80,000 in profit." Sometimes shop owners try to hide that so that they don't have to pay taxes. I'm all for That's one of the reasons why we have our tax bucket, is so that we're setting money aside. And then, so here's the great thing, is if you set money aside all year and you January 3rd or 4th, you hand your statement over to the accountant and they say, "Hey, you only owe $10,000 in taxes, but you've got $27,000 sitting there," then you just cut the IRS a check on, January 7th. It's done and over with. And then the rest of that gets dispersed back to the owner or the employees, or however you want to do that. There's so many more options for your business when you have cash. It's unbelievable. Like, really, when I say sky's the limit, sky is the limit. When you have cash like that too, it also opens you up to opportunities to become a multi-shop owner if you're interested in doing that. There are a lot of other shops that go out of business just overnight, and they just lock up the doors and go away. You can get into that business for pennies on the dollar, or just go in and assume the rent or the lease on the building, set it up, and then you're back in business and running. So, I mean, I could spend a lot of time talking about all the things, but really, one of the things that when I was teaching one of my classes, we were going through the allocations, and I was like, "You can make an allocation bucket for anything." And a guy's like, "Hey, I want to buy a plane." I'm like, "That's fine. You just do it, label it plane bucket, and you just put money in that account. That's your money to do whatever you want to with." I need to check back out with him and see if he ever bought his plane. But again, sky's the limit.
And then on the other end, what is the downside of choosing to kind of ignore your cash flow strategy, trying to remember everything on your own, doing things manually, not having a system in place? What is the effect of that over time on your business and the potential negative effects it will have?
Well, what I find is some shop owners don't have processes and procedures. Some shop owners do have processes and procedures. Some very seldomly have a process and procedure for how they handle cash and how they handle vendor payments and everything else like that. So what happens is over time, if you're just sitting back and your margins are eroding, let's look at what's happened the last couple of years. If you're Mr. Nice Shop owner or Mrs. Nice Shop owner, inflation's gone up and you feel sorry for your people, your customers, then your parts margin may have eroded. Maybe before you were only using the list price instead of a parts matrix. Maybe you were getting 35%. Now you're getting 28%. What happens is cash just goes away out of the business. Same thing with the labor margin. Cash goes away out of the business. And then what happens is it's just a deterioration. Bills don't get paid on time, so vendors cut you off. You make sure that all your internal employees make sure their checks are cashed. So you write a check to yourself thinking, "Oh, it's kind of like sales tax. Oh, I'll pay myself that next month." And then you take that paper check and put it in your top drawer of your desk, and before you know it, you've got like 8 of those checks stacked up in there. And then the deterioration at home happens, because if you were writing yourself a check and then not cashing it, then your budget at home gets messed up. And so it's just like a downward glide. And it can take 18 months. It can take 2 years, 3 years for this downward spiral to finally finish. because, you've got cash flow a little bit and you're paying people, but there's no quote unquote extra because the margins are too low.
So, for a shop owner who wants to go about implementing an effective cash flow strategy, how can they get started? How can they kind of simplify? It may feel complex at first putting all of this into place. How can they kind of simplify the installation of this and get going, even despite some of their lingering doubts about how this process will take place?
Well, really the hardest part is just making a decision you want to do it. The information's all out there. Like I did a webinar for you guys. I've done a webinar on my own. You can go to several different YouTube places and find it and listen to it. Basically you're putting profits first in your business. There was a book called Profit First. What I've done is read that book, combined it with the Dave Ramsey method, and combined it into my auto shop profits and cash flow method. But really, one, you have to decide I'm committed to this and want to do it. And then two, you have to start putting it into place. Usually the big hurdle is the bank. And really, once you get past the bank, the allocations and everything just kind of fall in line after that. There's, again, just like anything, getting started. If you're out there and you're like, oh, I want to coach, but whatever. And then if you never call a coach or you never call anybody or if you never call a peer group, then guess what? You can't ever get started. So one, if cash flow is an issue, first look at your margins. If your margins are not the typical margins like I'm talking about, then you got to fix those. After you fix your margins, then start making sure you have a surplus in those accounts and then use it to your advantage.
That's great perspective. Any closing advice or insights that you'd like to share on the topic of effective cash flow strategies?
No, I think we've covered it really good. I think what we just talked about getting started is super huge. I have people call me all the time. We're always talking to great shop owners all across the country. Coaches are doing a great job, but usually what happens, or not usually, sometimes what happens is people will contact me, and for whatever reason they don't pull the trigger, they don't do it as far as coaching goes, or having somebody help them implement the auto shop profits and cash flow strategy. And then they sit. And then what I find is 6 months later, they'll reach back out to me and they're like, okay, the pain is finally enough. I'm ready to go. And then we get started and they're like, man, that was so easy. I wished I would have started it 6 months ago. I wish I would have started it 8 months ago. So I would tell you, if you're sitting out there, if you're having trouble in your auto repair shop, don't wait. It's not going to automatically fix itself. You're going to have somebody else out there watching over you, helping you. And if not now, when? Get out there, get started, don't put it off, and then go out and realize your dreams, because everybody's dreams are attainable, but you got to make strides to get there.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Chris, and we'll be back soon with the next episode of the Shop Management Show presented by AutoLeap.